Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Daily Combat Podcast. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly with the double biceps. It is in the contract and legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. We're just ticking the boxes, making sure that the lawyers are happy. The man to my right this time, but to your left, it is in fact the co-pilot, the co-founder, the co-wearer of clothes, the co-breather of air in this very room. It is in fact the king of sting, the master of disaster, the Count of Monte Cristo. It is Thunderlips, the ultimate male. Do it over there. It is the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year Award. And there it is.
Be serious.
The illustrious award held by the illustrious man with the illustrious beard. It is, in fact, your friend and mine. It is Dave Stockbridge. Stockbridge, welcome to the Daily Combat Podcast.
Thank you very much for that very, very warm welcome. What a massive week it has been in the world of local MMA. Hollywood Matt Connolly. We're just now recovering from DFC 18, the biggest and best DFC event to date. And joining us here on the podcast is Rich Banger Warner.
Hello.
He is the commentator for DFC, along with Andy Carpenter, of course, your partner in crime, as they like to say.
Yes.
And a big DFC 18. And we're going to go right through the card and get your thoughts as we do, Rich. And
is that my intro? Is that it? You're not going to say doyen.
The doyen of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Jiu-Jitsu expert.
We're going to raise that.
Yes. We're over that hurdle already.
We definitely won't say doyen. We won't say you're a master of Jiu-Jitsu.
The dickhead from DFC.
What a card it was, though. DFC, amazing event. So many first-round finishes all in a row.
Oh,
Probably the most I've seen on a card, on an MMA card.
it did just keep moving quite fast through the fights because there was, they weren't going to the judge's decision, were they?
No, they weren't getting past the first round.
I thought we were all going to be home by 9:30 at one stage. But Rich, what are your executive overview of DFC 18, if you will?
Well, yeah, look, as you guys have said, they get better and better. The matchups were the key, weren't they? Like, Ike, as always, does really great matchups. One of those matchups in particular, the very main event, was 6 years in the making with Brad Wally against Jake Hurl. I nearly forgot his name. Sorry, Jake. And look, so there was a lot of talk, a lot of stuff in the background to actually get that fight. And look, the matchups were spot on, absolutely spot on. There wasn't a dud fight on the card, as you'd expect. And some really, really big knockouts and big finishes. So, I think it was on point as per usual.
So your three main events of the night were really a grudge match and two title fights.
Those last three, oh my God. I mean, if you paid your money and you just saw those last three fights, you'd got your money, well worth and spent your money well. So, look, it was Joe Brown versus Damien Volar. We're wearing the Damien Volar t-shirt today.
And that was for the middleweight title,
the
DFC middleweight title.
It was. Of course, we're all big fans of Talia, the Great White Greats. Do the intro for Great White Greats. I love that. I always get pins and needles when you do your MC thing, Dave. Really do. That was an awesome battle, wasn't it? And then of course, Jake Hurl versus the Ant-Man in Brad Wally. So a lot of talk between those two boys over the years, and I don't know how much we should talk about exactly the background of that fight, things that have, the naughty words that had been said
There was
to
some
each
bad
other.
blood, though.
There was definitely some bad blood, wasn't there? And some fighters on debut. We had the Hooks BJJ Challenge, which was two heats and a final throughout the night as well. So fight fans had plenty to look forward to. 14 fights in total, including the three BJJ matchups. So a very, very full card, and it all kicked off at the beginning of the night.
It normally kicks off at the beginning of the night.
I like it when it starts.
I don't know.
The card that was just up on the screen.
I'm just bringing it up here so that everyone. No, I'm gonna bring it up so everyone can see it.
Oh, wonderful! This is great.
And it's 50% uploaded. Here we go.
Trying to put us off, Dave.
was missed a little bit in the pay-per-view. And by the way, you can still pick up the pay-per-view. Fight TV, head over there right now.
Or $5 sent to me. I'll probably give my username and password. I don't know.
So $50 or $5, the choice is yours.
Big Boob 69 is that the rest of the password?
Still the password. And what people might miss is that in that first few minutes of the night, there was no sound coming through from the commentary booth. We don't know what happened.
Always good to highlight the negatives.
Yeah,
good job.
But what they did miss was some of the chatter about Dan Curry and Dan Curry's last appearance at DFC, which wasn't a BJJ fight, but was maybe the bloodiest MMA fight that I've ever seen, and maybe the bloodiest in the history of Australian MMA. I mean, that particular night still haunts me. I'll wake up in the middle of the night.
You were covered in blood, boys. You just bought this beautiful suit, and it's just red marked and pock marked all over it.
You had to get your tailor to design it to be blood proof.
Yeah, that's right. Just come out in a plastic suit.
The smell of that copper. That's still to this day.
That, I mean, you see bloody matches, but you don't smell bloody matches.
No,
that was ridiculous.
That was insane. Absolutely insane. You were almost slipping on the blood as you walked into the cage. It was, quite unbelievable. Jordan Clark is in the chat. Sponsor Rich Warner now. Sponsor this man.
There is room at the back of his shirt, Dave, if you want a sponsorship. Just at the back so no one can see it.
G'day, Jordan. How are you, mate? Jordan fought on Element Fight Night a few weeks ago, and it was really awesome. I had the best seat in the house. I was just right up next to the cage just because I got there nice and early, and no one sort of kicked me out of the spot. So I was like, yeah! He connected eyes with me, like I think maybe before he'd thrown a punch. And, you know, me, big bloody mouth, can't help myself. And I'm like, he's looking at me, so I'm going to start coaching him a little bit. And I started going out combinations, and he started like, yeah, all right, good one.
Oh, come on, Rich. Yeah.
And then they started working, and he had an awesome fight with this other fella, and it was awesome because
he hasn't spoken to you since.
He's become a good mate of mine, and he is a big supporter of the podcast. He goes, I know you from the what's that podcast name? He knew us
from that one,
podcast.
From not this one.
And he put on a great fight, really, really back and forth, hard banging fight. So g'day, Jordan. Hope you're well, mate.
Did he win? He won the one?
No, he right. I had him one.
That's
but it was
not the happy ending we were
looking
looking
for. It
for.
was a split decision, and the judges, of course, got it wrong.
Okay.
So think he won.
So he won on one judge's card, though.
Yeah, and mine. So
oh, there you go. So it was a draw.
Yeah, I thought the judges were arguing over it, so it was very, very tight.
Yeah. Was it 29-28?
29-28. Could have gone either way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Well done, Jordan. We'll look forward to seeing you hopefully on a DFC card sometime soon, but otherwise I'm sure there'll be another Element Fight Night on the calendar at some time in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So becoming the annual fixture on the local MMA scene.
It was a fun fight, and he's on to the next one.
Very good, Jordan. Maybe has that been booked? Maybe this can be the platform to announce that next matchup of yours. We certainly hope so.
Maybe the DFC. I don't know.
Maybe it's DFC. It's UFC.
Yeah,
are they
called?
Well, yeah.
Come on the big show,
fighting
Jordan.
for the title of the light heavyweight championship
Against Damien Vola.
That's right.
So
his teammate.
One of the great things about DFC is that you do get some spectacular matchups at the top of the card and some really high quality, high caliber athletes. And one of the things that TFC have been able to do just beautifully over recent times is find some of this emerging talent that no one's really heard of yet, that are just on the peripheral of getting, they're training well, they're doing everything right, they're getting their preparation, but people don't really know how it's going to go in the cage for them yet, even the athletes themselves. But somehow DFC have got a bit of a knack of finding who those athletes are and elevating them onto the biggest stage in MMA here in South Australia.
In the last few years, we've had quite a good emergence of interclub challenges, which is, even before they get to say Element Fight Night, which is another, great competition that's been going on once a year or so. Interclub's a great way to check out your fighters and put them in the deep end and give them some first experience where it's not really an official fight. It doesn't get any recognition on terms of a record or anything like that. But it's great. It's a great way to say, okay, it's not necessarily sparring. It's not necessarily a fight. It's somewhere in between, but you get a really good picture of who these guys are. There's been a real some great opportunities. I think Complete Control with Alan Hartley has put on a couple of shows, which has really been exciting to get out and support. So if you hear about some of these, get amongst it and get along to them. One of the things as well is the state titles for BJJ is on this weekend on Saturday.
Cool.
So it's another great opportunity where you see some good talent coming up, and then of course we've got the state Muay Thai fights on Sunday. So it's a big weekend, guys, as well. So really exciting. I think I'm going to go to both.
That's crazy because it's complete opposite, isn't it? You've got the ground fighting, and then immediately the next day it's all stand up.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to see everybody. So if you're not at the BJJ, you'll be at the Muay Thai, and so it's a great big community that we have, isn't it? And then of course, if you want to really get into the real competition, you come to DFC.
And I think one of the great things at the bottom end of the card, you'll see guys that have only had one or two fights and mightn't have the best record yet, but they're rewarded because of the shows that they put on. So they might have come out on debut and lost narrowly, but put on a great show.
Mark Macefield is one of those. 4-1 he was this weekend, but he's never had a bad fight. So screw what it says on paper.
Yep.
This guy always comes forward. He had probably the worst performance he's put on so far because he just got dominated by an amazing grappler from, I believe, Western Australia. Remember the guy with the awesome glasses?
Yes.
Not the Hog, but the other awesome glasses.
Was he from Igor or not?
Oh, sorry, Igor, New South Wales.
Yeah.
Josh Kulabau. Kuya Kulabau in
Should be on
the
here,
background. What's his name?
Hamish MacGyver.
Thank you so much, Hamish. So these guys from Igor have not lost one fight, I believe, in South Australia.
Yeah, they've been
under
crushing.
DFC.
Well, maybe was it the guy who fought Damien last? Nugamauer.
No, I don't think he
was
from New South Wales, but he's
Brian Ebersol's gym.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Brian Ebersol. Talk us through Brian Ebersol.
Well, the hero.
With the arrow. Did you hear about this day? No.
So he used to I got to tell because it's hilarious. So Brian Ebersol is an American guy who'd moved. He'd been a bit of a journeyman in MMA, but he'd fought all around the world, and he was living in Sydney and he was training in Sydney. And then the UFC was having an event there, and last minute somebody got injured, and they said, "Oh, well, we've got to get somebody on to replace them, and who's a local fighter that can do it? It's got experience." And Brian put his hand up, and then they said, "Okay." And so he got the opportunity to go out and he fought. I think it was Chris Lytle, so it was somebody that was quite up there, and he won the fight.
And that's not the cool part of the story. But the cool part of the story is
exactly. So his little gimmick or his thing is that he would get his chest hair, he would shave it into an arrow pointing upwards towards his face. And they said, "Why did
this is where to hit me?"
Yeah. Why would you do that? He goes, "Well, none of my opponents have ever landed a good headshot on me, so I pointed at it like this is where my head is." And there was a video of him because his wife or his girlfriend hated it.
Oh yeah,
and
he looked like a complete clown.
Yeah, it was funny.
He's a great dude though.
Absolutely. And in one of his training sessions in grappling, the other guys had planned out that they were going to do this thing, and it was like they had a camera just sort of set up in the corner, and then they've gone, "Okay, now," and 8 guys in front and just grabbed him and held him down, and then his wife's put in the clippers and then shaved off the hero. He was really angry too.
Brian Ebersol. And the great other thing about Brian Ebersol is what he used to do. He was such an individual, just a total individualistic thinker, and he put that into his fight. He fought like an individual as well. He used to do the
cartwheel kick to start things off.
Cartwheel kick. He regularly did it, just he'd be losing the fight so badly, but he'd just be like, "Okay, I'll do some crazy shit," and just be like, "What the hell move was that?" Just to roll around in front of the fight.
Well, they got investigated for fight fixing because they didn't believe it was the very first move of the fight. They've started the fight. He's come out and done the cartwheel kick. It landed and knocked the guy out. And the athletic commission was like, "That no one would ever. That would not work. This is a fix." That, and then they had to investigate.
You just don't know Brian.
So you've planned this, and this is outrageous. You can't be going around doing that sort of thing.
Only ever worked once, though, Dave. Yeah. Never again. We tried it so many times after that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know what we're talking about.
Nugamauer was
Nugamauer. Yeah. But wrong gym.
Right,
I
it's
think
the
that's what
eagle.
it-
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Came full circle.
I was trying to escape the fact that I'd made a mistake.
No, but yeah.
I just highlight
We
it.
circled back.
Yeah.
So yeah, exciting fights. And from I love the fact that when you looked at the bottom of the card here, you got some fighters that are just making their first or second fight, and some like Mark, for instance, who have been just unfortunate, unlucky, or have put in great performances and
got
just
fight
haven't
of the nights, but just haven't got the win.
haven't got the win yet. But they're rewarded for the show that they're putting on, and I think that's kind of. I love that. That's what Ikey's putting out there. The promoter for the event is saying, win, lose, or draw, it's the show you put on. Put on a good show, and 100%. You'll always be back on DFC.
100%.
And we saw some familiar faces there. Mileta Creamy, for instance. Antonio Cesaro is another one of those.
Yeah, 3 fights in 3 months. Antonio Cesaro.
Yeah,
Cesaro.
Yeah. And Rahula Karabakh, for instance, is another one of those fighters.
Best performance ever.
Yes, yeah, very, very composed.
Which one was that?
He is the Afghan. No, Rahula was against Crane Burke from M16, and he looks Afghani, funnily enough.
Yeah.
Very serious, intense eyes, and a stand-up striker. He put in a really, really good performance. I don't know how else to explain him when you say, who is that?
No, I mean, like, which fight was it? I'm trying to remember what happened to that.
Fight number 8.
Yeah, Crane Burke.
Is that the only one that went decision?
And Crane, of the early ones. I
don't think any of the first 8 or 7 or 8 fights actually
went. Yeah, I think Antonio, I think that did go to decision from recollection.
It did. It did. And in the 3rd round, Rahula, I think the reason why he lost, he was the one who did the up kick, Dave. Yeah, exactly. And he got the point taken from Steve Percival. We're like, he's probably going to get a warning. And then when he gave the point, you're like, oh, shit, because it was so tight.
Yeah.
And, you could see the look of disappointment on Rahula, like another one who, hasn't had the best on paper, but always performs. And if you're an entertainer and you're thereabouts, we don't care, because someone's got to lose, and you have the best of the best lose as well. So really congratulations to Rahula from Trinity. Boys put on a fantastic performance in that one, but maybe that up kick decided it possibly.
Yeah, I think that was the difference in the end. It all came down to points.
I do support the taking of the point, though, because you get so many times where people commit a foul, and it did strike, and it did land, and that is an illegal shot. And they get warned so much before the fight. These are the rules. Do not do these things. Don't grab the fence. Don't kick your opponent when they're down. Do all this. And if you do that in the fight, it's like you've had 50 warnings prior to getting in the cage. Why do you now get another one, and your opponent is like stunned from that?
Well, it's different to say, a foul where you might grab the cage temporarily, and then you get your hand pulled off, the cage from the ref, and they give you maybe 1, maybe 2 warnings before you'd lose a point.
Right, yeah.
It's not necessarily going to hurt your opponent so much, is it? Whereas if you get an up kick, you can knock somebody out quite easily if you get them in the right spot. I think he got him in the body.
Wasn't it right in front of your desk? I saw it as straight in the face.
Well, somebody over here had better seats than the actual commentators.
Right in front of you,
right next to the lovely ring girl.
Yeah.
And I've watched the replay, and he's just chatting to the ring girl the whole time. Cameras on Hollywood. Yeah. And he's just sitting there going, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I don't know. Didn't watch a thing.
I didn't realize that.
Telling Tegan, look, I'm just going to the fights. I'm just, the guys will be there.
Yeah, the boys.
I was hanging out with Dave and Rich,
And then he sits on the other side of the cage.
What's going on here?
Settles up next to the ring girl. So there's this seat taken.
You pointed me to that scene. Because originally you'd said, you sit here. I'm like, okay, cool. And then you've come back from announcing, and you're like, that's my chair. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Where do I sit, Rich?
Sorry. I'm keen to get rid of Dave. There's many opportunities.
I must have too many of the snakes too early on. And
anyway, that's the secret.
Like, what about, there's a chair just free over there. I'm like, all right then. Yeah, I'll sit there. And I didn't realize that I was on camera every single time that you were doing the announcements. I was right next to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, after I realized
the
that.
Daily Combat t-shirt.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
that's
get
why.
the sponsorship.
Like, make sure I'm not just sitting there on my phone. I'm like, I'll pay attention. I'll clap for every single person.
I did notice the good timing with the clap. claps.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who is it? I don't know. Well done. Yes.
Yes, mate. You did time that well, even though you didn't see what was going on.
Well, I got a few people that were at the event. A couple of my friends that I didn't know they were there. They didn't know I was there, and they've sent videos of, they're filming the screen. A message of me sitting there like, oh, yeah.
Politely clapping.
That was great. But yeah, literally, like the cage was here, and a
Yes.
few times when the fighters sort of crashed into the cage, had to lean
You
back.
do think, Jesus,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
gonna. We had a little mic right up against the cage, pointing at us commentators, and it was only about that far away from the cage, and the cage moves. Not the cage moves, but the
mesh.
the mesh moves a little bit. Went like Damien Bowler and stuff. Hit it,
Yeah.
I'm like, things are gonna break here.
It's
pretty
yeah.
close.
But they were so close, like their legs were here, and I couldn't see what was going on. Like, they're basically standing here. I'm looking at their calf muscles. I can't see what they're doing up there.
It is something special being so close.
It was amazing.
And that's one of the reasons why I suppose I feel so privileged doing what we
Oh,
do.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Get the
Absolutely.
best seat in the house, and
Yeah.
when they allow me to scream and yell like I'd like to. Other events are like, shut up, dude! Like, what the fuck?
Well, I just wonder. I'm going to ask you now. How many kicks did you get up to with Talia in the first round? Because it's now almost
the
MMA
knees.
folklore here in Australia that the 14 kick count from Talia's fight from maybe a year or so ago now.
It's been surpassed.
It's now. What did you get up to?
Do you know what? I watched the replay, and I actually counted them properly on the replay because I could like press pause and shit, and I must have missed a good 10. But I swear I got up to like 30, 34, 35.
Wow.
And so I reckon it was probably about 45
Jeez.
knees that were,
Yeah.
that were given. Some not so flush as some of the others, but at least, 20, 25 of those 45 were right in the head. So 45 knees in the first round from Talia, the Great White Greats.
My goodness. It'll make a striking coach proud, one would imagine.
How did you score the fight overall?
Oh, geez, interesting call. Interesting question. I scored the first. Look, I'm not a judge, but I've got lots of opinions. Look, I scored the first round at 10-8 to Talia.
Okay.
I thought she didn't just beat her; she beat her convincingly in that first round. So much so that I thought there was some possible moments there where maybe the judge was getting right close to stopping it. And I think that was 10-8. And that's what I thought. I thought the second round. I'm still not quite sure exactly, but possibly she lost the second round. Possibly, her she didn't get any of the knees off like she did in the first, and maybe she. Remember her last fight was ended in a split decision loss. And it's very controversial. And if the greats guys are watching us now, I don't want to say the wrong thing because Josh is tough.
Talia is too.
Yeah, they're all tough. Mandy will beat the crap out of me. But yeah, look, I thought after that, it's going to play into your next fight. And I think she really didn't want to leave it in the hands of the judges after that.
So one thing I think that Talia did much better this time is at the end of every round, she threw the hand up. She looked like the winner of every round.
She changed her body language, didn't she?
Her body language has shifted substantially from last fight to this fight.
Well done, Talia. That was a big key. And you didn't look. We knew that you were winning anyway, but it just looks great. And do that regardless. Your job is to, yes, win the fight, but it's about the perception of you winning the fight. Do everything you can to be convincing of that fact. And she really, I don't know whose advice she took off that, whether it was us or Josh said something to her, but really, really well done at the end of every single round, regardless. Get your hand in the air and fist and put a big smile to the crowd like you won. Because maybe if it's really, really tight, maybe that judge will go, yeah, all right.
Well, and watching it back as well, as soon as the bell rang, the hand was up.
Yep.
She was acknowledging that, I've got this, I've got this. And the room got behind her. I mean, she always had the support of the room. But the room started to roar and people really got behind it.
We love it when you see a fighter loving it. You're like,
yeah.
So getting back to my score. Okay. So let's give her opponent round 2. All right. So she's now She's up by 1.
Mhm.
She won by 2 points in the first.
1918.
Yeah, you do the maths for me.
Okay.
Oh, fuck this up. So she wins by 2 in the first. She lost by 1 in the second. I thought maybe Talia in the third by 1 point, and then her opponent in the fourth possibly won. Possibly. Arguable on the second and the fourth about who won. You could have given Talia both of those, but let's be really generous and give it to her opponent. So you're now going into the 5th round. Not sure if that first round was a 10-8 because they're rarely given. I think she deserved it, but you're probably not given it because, I don't know, judges feel pressure not to do that. We can talk about 10-8s. I think it was a great conversation to have. But say going into the 5th, it could have been quite likely to be dead even. Which makes for a bloody great last 5 minutes. And I think she won the 5th.
Yeah, I agree. I had it 3-2. I didn't give a 10-8 in the first. 10-9. I had 3 rounds for Talia, first, third, and fifth. Second and fourth for the opponent.
There you go.
There you go. So we agree. That's good.
But I did say to the judge that was sitting next to you, like as he was handing in his score, I was like, "Oh, how did you score it?" And then he gave me this like, "Oh, you can't ask me that question." Look, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot. You can't tell me." And then he goes, 5 to Talia.
5.
Gave all 5.
Wow.
So yeah,
there you go.
And it wasn't a split decision this time. I believe it was majority win. So yeah, congratulations.
Yeah,
really
what a great effort.
Really great to see how happy and relieved and excited she was at the end of that.
Yeah. Well, I think Talia's had some trauma when it's come to being announced champion as well. And on at least one occasion, I think very early on in her career, she was it was a state boxing or was it kickboxing? She was fighting for a state title and heard her name announced as the winner. Only to be told, no. Hang on. No, sorry, we've got that wrong. And her opponent had the belt taken away, and
how horrible!
Yeah. So you see those emotional moments, and Talia was naturally had it came very close last time.
And then go to sleep after that. I'd be waking up, multiple times of the night, be going, I'm
the champ. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So for Talia to hear those words and then to not have the belt taken away, meant obviously all the more. So it was a beautiful moment and one we won't forget quickly at DFC. So
and just on that as well, every time she's had a decision, loss or win, geez, it's been a tough one. The Amina Hadaya fight. Geez, and Amina has now just taken a contract with Joe Lopez to go and fight in the UAE.
Wow.
So
really, yeah,
Amina Hadaya. So she has gone places, and so it was a awesome fight against Talia. I actually sent Amina a message this week saying, mate, when you're coming back to Diamondback, let's do a refight against Talia because I think that's an absolute banger fight.
Yeah, and Talia did have COVID when she
fought her.
Yeah, so
her dad wasn't able to be there as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of things working against her.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it again.
I would too.
If she can beat Amina, because Amina has gone out and really put her name out there, and if you beat her. You've taken her name, taken the glory off her. We could see Talia fighting on some big stages in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jordan Clark has said to answer the question earlier, my next fight is for one of Dave's Blazers.
The biggest prize in local MMA. It would appear.
Probably a good fit, actually. He's a big boy, Jordan.
Yeah, well, and Sam Najelki comes to mind as a potential opponent by the looks of things there too, Jordan. So that'd be an interesting matchup.
Well, Najelki's from the same club as well. So.
I think it might have been something we were talking about. I don't think he was saying him.
I was going to say, I would imagine pretty different weight divisions between the two of those guys. So unless Sam's bulking up a little bit, maybe.
The way Element are going, we're going to have to put them against each other, aren't we?
Yeah,
because they're just taking over. So
incredible. I don't know what's in the water down there.
We have to get a couple of losses for Element.
Phil Woody is in the chat. Hello to you, Phil.
Phil Woody.
He said that he just got back from. He got the the bow. Morning just landed back in Scotland. Amazing time it was in Ottawa. Great to hang out with Jacob again. That was obviously for the Arm Gods, the arm wrestling event that took place on the weekend.
In Canada.
We'll be talking about that later on the AWE podcast. But phenomenal to see that they did such a good show and did a fantastic job. And you were part of that, Phil. So, and we've got somebody here is McGonigal Sings. Such a great event. Some brilliant fights. Absolutely, we very much enjoyed it, and I'd love to see you here as well on the chat. And Jordan
Sings McGonigal, is that right?
Yeah, McGonigal Sings.
McGonigal Sings.
Yeah. You know who that is?
Oh, so Jordan's just clarifying here. No, not Sam as an opponent. Not Sam as an opponent. As someone who's had some great fights and but not enjoyed the success. So in other words, he's got more L's next to his name than the fights might suggest, than the quality of fights that he's had might suggest. And I agree. Yeah, Sam the jockey's been unlucky on a couple of occasions, and but it's always fun to see him into the cage, and the crowd love him.
Scratch man.
Scratch man.
It's one of the advantages I find with MMA compared to, say, boxing, where boxing, your record is everything. And if you lose a fight, you're pretty much done. Whereas in MMA, you can lose 10 fights in a row, but if they're all bangers, and it's just back and forth, it's just like, people will still want to see you. It's like, I don't care whether you won or lost. It's like you're exciting, you're entertaining. That's more important.
It's a different mentality, isn't it? And I think Muay Thai is the same, because these guys are fighting, over in Thailand every second week. You're never going to have 100 and none. You might have 50 and 50, and that means you're a fucking legend. Well done.
Absolutely. Was it when we were doing the Pride Fight series and the Muay Thai guy that they'd brought over for that, and you were saying to him, "What's your record?" So I can announce it on the card, and he's like,
Can't
let me write it down. Let me write it down. And it was like, I don't know, 180 wins and 46 losses or something. It was just
it was ridiculous.
It was like 10 draws. I don't know. It was almost 300 fights. It was insane.
And he was 14.
You do start them young, mate. Over there, they start them at age 5 and 6. Literally, it's great.
It's insane, and so we were blessed with some great fights early on, early stoppages. If we bring up that card just quickly, we'll whiz through. So we kicked off with the
let's talk about
BJJ.
Emir Zahovic versus Dan Curry, the tractor, and obviously Dan Curry won that one by ripping the arm off Emir, and I think he got a torn rotator cuff.
It looked most
by Kimura there. Normally it was kind of weird, because normally you train jiu-jitsu, and everyone will know what I'm talking about here, and you're looking after your stablemate, your buddies who you're rolling with all of the time. You might roll for 2 hours or whatever, and you pull on a Kimura, and you've got it. They can't get out of it, and you're just going slowly and just waiting for them to tap, because if you're going, you're still not going to tap. I'll give you a bit more. You don't need a lot of strength to once you've got your wrists connected on the Kimura, and you're going slowly, you're just waiting for the tap. So as long as you can control the body and you can just keep putting that arm behind their back, you're going to go enough until they just go, okay, that's enough. They're not going to get out of it generally. It's really hard to straighten the arm. It's really weird to see Dan Curry just pull it on hard like that. And he had up against the cage, couldn't go anywhere. And I think it was a verbal tap.
But it was a verbal scream in pain.
And it was done. And then you saw him come out of the cage. I think he sat right behind you, Matt. And torn rotator cuff. Or what was the other muscle?
His shoulder. Well, his shoulder looked like it popped right up. It was either dislocation or torn rotator cuff. I was hoping it wasn't a break in the humerus, but the opponent was trying to give him the fist bump, good on you, well done, and he couldn't even. That's right. He couldn't even take his arm away, he was in so much pain to be able to he was just yep, just leave me alone for a few minutes.
So really, really great job by Dan to start off the night there with a beautiful cranking submission. Really fast.
That was fast. He locked it, and it was just he's got it, and all of a sudden, because his arm was sort of in, and then it's
boom, out. As soon as he got that wrist lock, boom,
gone.
And that's the beauty of submission, isn't it? Is that you don't need. I mean, I say this because Dan is really strong, but it's not necessarily about strength once you've got the technique. If you can, the battle is to be able to get the wrist, and once you've got that wrist and then control onto your own wrist, It's it.
As a doyen of BJJ.
There it is. Yeah.
Bloody wanker. Millard
Yeah.
Nardell and Jacob Desmond. That was the first MMA fight of the night.
Now, if you don't know what this one was, this was the first Crazy Sunglasses event with the Hog. And if you're wondering why they call Jacob Desmond the Hog, well, he's the protege of Winnie the Pooh. The Pooh Bear, Vola,
Right.
Vola,
The honey bear.
The honey bear.
It's a different name every week. Isn't it? Every
Coming
fight,
for the honey.
Coming for the honey. Whatever it was. I even got confused in the
Coming
cage.
for the poo.
I wanted to say Pooh Bear, but then it was like, oh, it's not Pooh Bear. Is it coming for the honey? Is it?
All of the
hang
above.
on.
It was all of the
It's
above.
that guy. You know who I mean.
AKA.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
The bear. So, he's the protege. And I think, Jacob was previously an Australian superstar champion backstroke swimmer only a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And I think he was going for some crazy big event like Olympics or something like that. Just missed out on selection on the national team and got the shits and thought, screw this, put everything into swimming. And you can imagine the discipline involved in swimming.
Yeah.
And he's got massive feet, a bit like Thorpe, as wide as this is, and I think he missed out on the team and he thought, you know what, I'm a big MMA fan. I'm going to go to my local MMA gym and start doing that. That was a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And so Pooh Bear took him under his wing and he started calling him, well, if I'm the Pooh Bear, I'll call you the Piglet.
Which isn't the toughest name.
No.
So I'm glad it's been revised. And
That's right.
Yeah.
And then I think through the training, I thought, this guy's not the Piglet, he's the Hog.
He's the hog. He's the full hog.
What do you think? Best nicknames and worst nicknames you've heard in MMA?
Or best and worst of what you've made up.
Yeah, even that.
Or maybe Brian Ebersols is probably the worst.
The hero.
The hero.
Yeah, that was good. I think one of the worst, probably the worst, Twinkle Toes.
Who was that?
Frank Trigg.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty shit.
Frank Twinkle Toes
That's
Trigg.
shit.
One of my favorites was the Meat Truck.
Oh, who was the meat truck?
He was a heavyweight in the UFC. I think he lasted maybe 2 fights, but yeah, he was like a block of a man, and it was like the Meat Truck. I'm like, that's
What
very
would
apt.
be your fight name, Hollywood?
Well, Hollywood.
Hollywood, really?
Hollywood.
Coming up with anything else.
I had to come up with that all by myself.
Yeah.
So you'd have to come up with a fight name format.
Yeah.
That would then it's got meaning. Then it's
Twinkle Toes is already taken.
Can we put like an arrow on your chest?
Pointing down.
Just for the ladies. Yeah.
Jordan Clark says he's interested to know who you think should go for the amateur middleweight and light heavyweight titles, given Bola is going pro.
Oh, well, I think probably the best answer for that is the guy he just lost to. In Joe the Vanilla Gorilla Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Probably because we're really biased and we love him.
What about Isaac Richards? Where do you feel Isaac fits in
Oh.
that whole scheme of things?
I think, did he fight at middleweight? It might have been.
Isaac, was that middleweight or was he
Let's have a quick look.
light heavyweight?
They're both vacant if Damien's
Yeah,
leaving.
well, that's right. So we got.
So he's carrying around 4 belts at the moment,
Well,
isn't he, Damien?
But is it 4 belts, 3 titles?
I think so. Yeah.
No,
He's got a light heavyweight in DFC
Isaac-
and XFC.
Isaac Richards fought at light heavy.
Yeah. So there you go.
And I think it's probably a bit too much for him to get down. He's just fantastic at the weight that he's at, isn't he?
Isn't he? So
The bull cat.
Okay, so at middleweight, we're looking at Joe.
I'd like to see
Joe Brown
I was thinking
coming back.
about this. Yeah, look, I'd love to see Joe. And he took that loss really well. I've seen him. He's like on social media since then, and had a little chat to him. And I think I was really, almost crying for him because we love him. He's a great mate and a great guy, and you can't but support this young man, Joe Brown. I'd love to see, and he was like, I'll learn from that. I'm going to come back straight away. You've probably seen that, and I was like, wow, geez, it's like less than 20 hours since the fight, and he's like, enjoying time. He got engaged
straight afterwards. Yes. So
He got
congratulations.
engaged.
Yeah.
Vanilla Gorilla.
So maybe little gorillas are on the horizon. Little gorillas out there. So
Joe Brown for middleweight title, cardio flex.
And it'll be interesting to see who emerges as a worthy contender in amateurs now. Although Joe's on the brink of going pro, and I think Joe said it on a couple of occasions.
He did.
We're all 0-0 when we start as pros, so he doesn't mind taking an L here and there if it's all moving in the right direction. And so I felt like there was a lot of growth in Joe as a result of his loss.
Fight, Dave! What a fight!
Epic. And I thought
Did
he
you
was
find
having
it
a lot
hard to watch because we love them both?
it was one of those. I think it kind of it compromises your own morality, because I really like these two guys.
Yeah,
I want them both to win. But I don't want to see anybody lose. But but which means maybe I don't want to see the fight. No, I really want to see the fight.
I was torn.
I didn't. I couldn't say it. I couldn't cheer for it. And I was like, when you like go.
Go both.
It was kind of just watching in shock in a little bit of it. But what I will say is that, and I know we're bouncing around the card a little bit here, but I feel like Joe was enjoying some success with his uppercuts. Like Joe has his wide stance and he almost like an old school boxer, and he's kind of got his hands really low, and because he's got that reach, like he seems to have some success in coming underneath. It's not like a full uppercut; it's more like almost like a jab from the hip.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and so he can keep his distance.
Come on, let's go.
And he almost lures the shorter opponents with the less reach in, and he keeps his chin out there, and it's exciting to watch. And what he didn't do was shift up his stance as much as what I've seen him do before.
Oh, great call!
And
great call.
Great call. I've been watching.
I didn't notice that until you just said it, and I'm like, oh, that's spot on.
Yeah,
he did change it up once he got a heavy calf kick.
He got a lot of inside leg kicks, didn't he?
There was one particular that you saw the big red line appear almost instantly, and he started changing stances pretty quick after that. His corner, like Damien's corner's like, he's changing stances, and then he turns it back. He's like, oh.
Whereas he normally would just do that quite regularly as he's bouncing around the cage, and remaining static probably exposed that hard kick when it came through. When he did change, it was really obvious. And he was enjoying some success with that. And as the fight grew on, the sting came out of that hip jab. And all of a sudden,
the hip jab. We've got a new name. The hip jab.
And
go Stockbridge.
Just making it up. Yeah. And so I feel like that's when Damien was able to close the distance without as much fear, and was able to break through. And it really did take until the end of the third round and into the fourth round before we started to see that dominance really emerge. It was still quite even, and you could have seen it go either way right up until the end.
I think Joe's game plan, and I think in most of his fights, is very much a counter-striking style. As you said, he's got his hips back and he's got his upper body forwards. So he's leaning forwards, but his hands are really low, and he's inviting people to throw punches, but his hands are ready to come up where you can't see that they're coming from underneath. So he catches a lot of people like that. And you could see he was waiting on Damien to come in. And every time that Damien would come in, he would throw the counter. But it wasn't until I think it was late in the second or early in the third, because Damien was throwing a lot of 1-2s, and he was getting caught with a single shot that Joe was throwing back. But when Damien threw a 3-punch combo,
that's right.
That's what happened. That changed a lot of the impact and a lot of momentum in the fight, because he's come forwards, he's thrown 1-2, and then he's gone 3, and Joe was not expecting that third punch to come, and it's landed clean and knocked him completely down.
That's right.
He did recover and get back up, but from that moment on, it looked like the sting had gone out of his punches. It looked like he'd been a little bit rocked, and then he got a very heavy calf kick, and that sort of limited his movement. I think he was very concerned about the wrestling of Damien, and so you saw in that first round, any time that Damien closed the distance or grabbed hold, Joe was very aggressive to get him off of and then move away, which is, obviously the game plan. He wanted to keep it standing. He wanted to do that counter striking, but after getting sort of rocked quite significantly in
It was
that.
the second round where he got the double right punch and I think went down. Was it the second round?
I think it was either late in the second or early in the third, but he knocked
No,
to
it was
the
the
floor.
second. It was the second for sure.
Yeah, and then from that point on,
He
it looked
landed
like
that right hand, and Damien you could see it in his head go, "Oh, that landed. I'll do it again."
Right.
And then he went down.
yeah,
Didn't stay down.
no,
Sorry.
he did. Yeah,
I'm
that's right.
Interrupting your flow.
No, that's
Sorry,
okay.
mate.
Yeah. And so it felt like at that point that Joe was slowly fading in terms of, he was still there and still conscious and still, but yeah, he just didn't have that power behind what he was doing anymore. And his game plan had sort of been worked out by Damien at that point. He knew that if he stepped forwards back, and then flurried forwards, that was where he was landing. And then obviously in the fifth, he was able to take Joe to the ground. Joe was sort of exhausted at that point. He copied a lot of punches, and he saw he just couldn't sort of work his way out of it, and ended up getting the TKO finish.
Was there 5 rounds or 3?
I was in the fifth one, though. It was the title.
3 rounds.
Oh, it was 3. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, 5 times 3. My apologies.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It might have been the third
it was in the last round,
Yeah,
whatever
sorry,
it was.
sorry.
But
there was
for a
5
title.
rounds, that's right.
yeah, so yeah, but it looked like Joe was because I was watching him in the corner with he was talking with Ike. He was very he was very exhausted at that point, and Ike's trying to fire him up for this last round, and he came out the first minute. He looked all right. He looked quite good. I think that was everything he had left. And then when Damien gets on top of you, it's very, very hard to get him off.
Didn't like watching that.
Yeah, and he got the finish. The sad thing was watching as soon as Damien got pulled away by the referee and the coaches got let in, and Joe walked straight up to Ike and he just said, "I'm sorry."
Oh.
I was like, oh, horrible to see that. You got nothing to be sorry about, Joe. You did amazing. You did an awesome job. And styles make fights, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But the good thing is, as you said, as an amateur, this is where you do all your learning, and you do that learning in the cage, and so you're going to be coming back better next time.
And it really is great when you've got 2 young athletes that are coming up at the same time. There is that rivalry. They're both trying to cement their positions within the respective weight divisions. And of course, after the very early loss of by Joe to Damien in his career, I think first loss, and only loss. So his only 2 losses have now been to Damien Bowler, and I reckon the first fight was light heavyweight as well. So after that, Joe's settled back into middleweight. I think pretty much the next fight from there onwards.
That's right.
And then
trying to get away from Vola, and Vola cuts half of his body weight and comes down and follows him. And
well, Damien was
it was the first fight.
Yeah, first fight. So and then Damien's remained at light heavyweight, and then has dropped down to middleweight just to meet Joe for this title fight. So which was interesting. And
Volar's gone now, Joe. If you're watching this, stay at middle and let's get a title, baby.
So it'll be interesting, won't it, over the next few weeks, because obviously Joe's got a lot to think about, and he's been planning to go pro himself, and so we'll see whether or not that the loss will figure into his calculations.
Maybe you can go around the country like Volar did and just retrace Volar's steps and picking up the XFC title and then come back to the DFC title.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you guys called that beautifully, by the way. Well done. A couple of other points
We
I'll
should
put
start
on
a
it as well.
podcast.
There's a couple of things to note.
That you're completely wrong.
No, I loved your call, guys. Perfect call. There was a couple of missed opportunities by Joe. He baited with his chin and he pulled out of the way. Vola came forward with some really looping right hands and left hooks and so forth. He beautifully slipped, but it was like you were saying, Damien was throwing 3 or whatever, but there was a couple of opportunities where he's beautifully slipped. He's got the corner right and he didn't throw the left hook or the kick or anything like that. Perhaps out of tiredness, perhaps out of his legs were chewed and he just didn't have enough to be able to take advantage, but he was in the right position to be able to throw left hooks, and both a few times did not take advantage. So he's baiting, but then when he's in the right position, he missed the to throw, maybe hesitancy. The other thing I thought, 2 other things were because of Volar's amazing attacks. We've never seen Damien strike so much and so aggressively, so fluently like he did in that fight. he shocked Joe because I think Joe was expecting to get the better of him on the strikes.
Yeah.
I think we all did.
Mm.
If you look at their first fight, I think Joe was doing very well on the feet against Damien until Damien took him down and started pounding his head against like a basketball against the cage.
I'll even say when Damien fought Gary Neugebauer, Gary looked in that fight a lot more than maybe the scorecards would suggest. And Damien striking didn't seem to be making a big impact. I mean, Gary Neugebauer was obviously made of concrete. So I mean that's a contributing factor, but it wasn't the striking that made the difference. Although it did get the job done in the end, it wasn't seemingly making a difference in.
He was copping some big shots.
He was copping,
especially the jab of Gary.
Yeah. And wasn't seemingly getting out of the way of Gary, and who you wouldn't say is the slickest striker in the division either. So So that's interesting to see how Damien's tuned all of that up. And I think that might come down to perhaps his preparation in his camp for this, losing the weight. But
he definitely got speed on him now.
Spent a lot of time with Jimmy Crute over the last couple of months, I understand.
Yeah, and Jimmy's, predominantly a striker. So maybe, if Damien's gone in there to help Jimmy for his UFC fight, they probably didn't spend a lot of time on the ground as much as Damien would be normally comfortable with. So really maybe really, really sharpening up those striking skills. We definitely saw it in this fight. It shocked me. I think maybe it shocked Joe. And he just came forward and did so much. I think that's probably the highest number of strikes we've ever seen Damien from a round-to-round perspective put in. And, we didn't expect Joe to be on the back foot as much as he was. And Damien, well done. Hats off to you. Your game has definitely changed. And I think the big question I was asking before we fought was, we're seeing a different-bodied Damien Vola. I don't know how much weight he lost. I think I've heard him talk about he got some different health nutritional advice in. Somebody new into his camp that really changed things, because Damien's always been a big boy. He's come from that gridiron background for years ago, and obviously the more beers you can have, the better. Whereas no beers for Damien. He wasn't having a lot of body fat on him at all, and
well, I think in his first appearance here on the podcast, he was mentioning that he was walking around at 110, and then coming down a light heavyweight from there. So yeah, and I think here's the thing with Damien, he's really had the spotlight over the last maybe 4 or 5 fights. That he's been main event material, and he's been winning belts, and he's been cool. But it's only a matter of 18 months ago there wasn't a strap over his shoulder, and he wasn't the big name. And I think what's happened with Damien, whereas a lot of fighters improve and maybe incrementally and they fine tune from fight to fight, Damien's evolved from fight to fight. Like there's been a noticeable, not just a minor improvement, but a noticeable and dramatic improvement that's a game changer. Almost every single fight he's bringing something new.
Joe had in his head, I'm going to fight the same Damien Vola that I fought on fight 1. And if that being the case, may have won. But Vola, with the amount of road that he's been able to cover, and the amount of strength that he's added to his game, the body can't wait coming down to middleweight, and he's given him a lot of speed. His cardio was beautiful. His cardio outlasted Joe, I thought, and it showed in that 5th round. And I thought that the amount of kicks that he put on Joe really stopped Joe from dancing as much as he needed to. You saw early in the fight, like you guys have talked about, baiting with your chin and holding the low hands. You've got to have good foot movement to be able to move back and throw that and use that counter angle. Getting left to right. And I saw him moving a lot of beautiful lefts to rights early on. But with that leg being chewed up, maybe that was the difference in him not being able to get out of the way. And Damien's going, oh, this is great. I'm starting to land here. Let's keep going.
It does make you wonder a little bit as well, because we know that Damien for the last 12 months is essentially, although he's not hasn't been a professional fighter, he has been dedicating himself
as a pro,
full time,
like a pro
to the craft. Yeah. So essentially, living the life of a pro. He doesn't. His day job is at the gym. It's as a coach and a trainer. And when he's not coaching and training, he's training himself. And then
it's all fight game. It's all fight game.
And then you've got Joe who's driving an hour back and forth, like 2 hours every time he trains. It's an hour in the car to training.
He lives down south and he's training it. You know,
he's going to the other side of town, and so he's literally driving an hour every time. And so you kind of can, you wonder to what extent that the wash up of that might be on a performance when you at that highest level in a local amateur MMA. So and I guess this is the difference where we're starting to see those athletes that are taking the sport seriously and going all in, like Damien, and athletes like Joe that may be about to do that but haven't yet made that full commitment. So it'd be really interesting to see how Joe goes in terms of.
You're saying Joe's not very committed.
If Joe can only just dedicate himself to this.
Vanilla Gorilla. We're sorry. Look, don't listen to this guy.
Dave, what I'd love to see is if Joe had those same opportunities, if Joe had the same opportunity to dedicate himself to the sport in the same way that Damien's had the chance to over the last 12 or so months. What type of athlete do we see in 12 months' time?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if you're working full time doing something else and then you're training on top of that, as compared to being able to train full time,
it's also having that headspace, isn't it?
Right.
Where you're just in that zone all the time. It's what you're thinking. You're living, you're breathing it. When you're talking about it, you're hanging out with everybody. It's just
here's what I'd do if I
was
was
immersed in the culture.
If I was Joe right now,
take it seriously.
I would get alongside Damien and say, Damien, I have to be your best friend. I want to train with you all of the time because you are my kryptonite. I can beat everybody else. The only person's beat me is you. What is it that I need to do to be able to smash you? Take me there. I would go deep with him, go into his camp.
I don't know. I think that there's a professional rivalry that we'll see in 3 or 4 years' time. I think we're going to see these two young men again fighting each other for a professional title at middleweight, at light heavyweight. I mean, both of these young men, they're still growing. They're both in their 20s. We could see both of these guys in 2 or 3 years' time at light heavyweight.
For our sakes, can you guys just get along and not fight anymore? Because we love us both too much. I don't want to see anybody lose.
What's good for the sport is different to what's good for us.
Yeah.
I did see Joe on the Wednesday, which was the day before the weigh-ins. I was at the shopping centre down at Marion because we both live down south, and I was just walking through and I was like, "Oh, hey, Joe," and he's
at
like,
McDonald's just eating
stuff in his face, full of ice cream. And I said, "Oh, how you going?" And he's, I wasn't aware that the fight card was taking place until he said, "Oh yeah, I'm fighting this weekend." He said, "I'm cutting weight at the moment," and I was like, "Oh, okay. When do you have to weigh in?" And he's like, "Oh, tomorrow in like 20 hours time or something." And I was like, "Oh, okay. How are you going with it?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I hired a nutritionist and everything's been going great." He goes, "Normally I'd be at home in bed, not being able to move." He goes, "But here I am, like, walking around the shops. Like, I feel fantastic." He goes, "I've only got to cut like 4 kilos or something." And he goes, "I'll probably wake up tomorrow 2 kilos lighter, and then I'll do 2 kilos of water, and that should be it."
Joe is one of those guys that looks like death when he stands on the scales, doesn't he? Looks like a Holocaust survivor. And then 24 hours later,
did he just say that?
And then 24 hours later, he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He dropped to 84 is middleweight, and I think he said he weighs around 92 normally. So he would have jumped straight back up to that pretty quickly, I'd say. 8 kilos difference.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a great fight, and
almost just talk about them for the next 3 hours.
Almost got to the end of that one, but Damien, Honey Bear. I think we're going with Honey Bear now, aren't we?
Pooh Bear.
I think I'll call both on the night. So I think he got Honey Bear, and then at the end of the night he got Pooh Bear, but he's got them all. He's got all the titles. He's got all the nicknames.
He does.
Damien Bowler. Damien Bowler, he is the man of the moment.
Love you, Damien.
At middle and light heavyweight in the country. And he, at the end of the night, and just for those that haven't yet caught the pay-per-view, Damien relinquished his titles and said, that's it at amateur.
How was
He put
that?
the gloves in the middle of the cage and said, it's I'm done, and then distributed his belts out to his coaches and trainers and his team. And handed
I've
each,
never
each
seen that
belt
happen.
out.
Have you ever seen that happen?
No, I saw him struggling to try to pick all 4 of them up.
Yeah. He's like,
Yeah, I think the weight might have just gone. And handed it out to his team there in the cage, and then said basically, I'm done with amateur. I'm going to go terrorize.
where was our belt, Dave? Like, I thought we were going to get one.
Yeah, I was standing there. But anyway,
You're like this.
You're like, where's
I'm the only one that doesn't get one.
Bro,
What do you mean?
You're not coming on the podcast ever again.
So yeah, a special fight, a special moment for a lot of reasons.
What a guy.
Yeah, a lot of humility and a lot of respect between those two athletes as well. Although they've had a great amateur rivalry, there's no doubt that they've both been looking at each other in the corner of each other's eyes over the last couple of years as they've both been rising through the ranks. No doubt we are.
He's trying to not make a sound when you open that can.
Couldn't have made a louder sound.
It's because it's the solo can.
He's hitting it under the table. Like, no one will know.
So very special fight. What I do want to talk about a little bit. So we've touched on Jasmine and Talia, and Talia's impressive win, and I guess for a lot of people that were at DFC 17, there was some conjecture over that result. Of course, Danielle Drop Bear Curtis walking away with the titles, becoming, and I guess if you've lost in a close fight with the only person in the history of MMA to hold 3 titles over 3 weight divisions. I mean, there's no shame in that, and to go so close. And as we say, maybe it was body language that was the difference in the end in that determination by the judge, maybe. But at the end of the day, it came
so the only reason
so
she
close.
won is because she did body language. She didn't fight better than it.
No, it had nothing to do with it.
Josh.
But for Talia to come back, that was a real story of redemption, and Jasmine put in an amazing effort, and obviously showed us all why she's regarded as one of the greatest female fighters to come out of Perth ever. But came very, very close and just fell short in much the same way that Talia did just a matter of a few short months ago. So I'm sure that we're going to see these two young women in a cage facing off again at some point in the not too distant future. Maybe that's to come in the pros as well, and something for us all to look forward to.
Maybe she got to fight Drop Bear again as well and get that win back too.
Well, you can see it on the cards, can't you? I mean, there's no doubt that there's a real little group of women right now that there's 4 or 5 of them that you'd pay money just to see them fight.
Yeah,
don't worry about any undercard or anything. That's enough. And Talia's name's always in the mix. So that's exciting.
Let's mention the second round from Jasmine Nakora. The second round after copping 45 knees in the first.
The comeback round for her.
We were expecting it to be done, right? What the hell happened in the corner there to Jasmine Nakora for her to come back and go, "That's okay. I'm going to rebuild here. I'm going to, take stock again and come back and put in she possibly won that second round. 45 knees in the first, and then to actually come back and win that round by some just really good stand-up striking.
There was a brief moment in that second round, about 3/4 of the way through the second round, where almost anything that Talia was doing wasn't working.
Yes.
And there was almost a look of despair, like, how many times do I have to kick you?
Yeah.
I can't get anything through now. Like, what, almost like, what's going on? Like, because you could see she was landing and she was doing all the right things, but it just didn't seem to have effect.
It was really great, but just not quite.
Yeah. So
I feel like that first round Talia put in, obviously the massive effort. She's landed a lot of knees, a lot of.
This is going to be a good comment.
A lot of them landed, and she was very dominant in that first round. And then it seemed like the rest of the fight, either she got exhausted after that first round.
Did she dump it all?
Yeah, possibly, because it seemed like the second round onwards, it was very much she returned to a counter striking style, and she was throwing only one punch at a time, move away, one kick at a time, move
question
away.
to jump in with you. Did she dump it all because of the previous fight's decision?
Possibly,
maybe, yeah,
possibly, yeah. But it felt like you've gone from being so aggressive and throwing so many strikes to now you're throwing one strike at a time. And then and that's why for me it was so close, because the opponent was doing the same, and you're both were sort of working forwards, getting in range, and then moving away, and then you get in range. Someone would throw one strike, you both move away. The other person would throw one, you both move away, and it continued like that for the rest of the fight. And I felt like calling out, like, Talia, throw 3 punches, flurry, get her against the cage.
It's that third punch.
So that flurry will push her against the cage. She was backing off every time you threw. Back her into the cage, grab that Muay Thai clinch, you'll land the knees again. But it just seemed like after right, yeah. But it was after that initial first round, the rest of the fight played out as one shot at a time. And I just felt like, throw the flurry. She is backing away from that. She is intimidated with your flurry.
Yes.
When you got her against the cage, that's when you grab that tie clinch. That's when you're landing those knees. Do that. That will win you this fight.
Well, I think in Talia's last fight, she was quite obviously gassed and exhausted towards the end. We didn't see that in this fight, and maybe that's because there was a real. I think the optics of winning and being so dominant in that first round gave the luxury of being able to then counter strike and maybe preserve herself in case you get to the 4th or the 5th and you've really got to pour it on. She needed to have something there. You didn't see Talia sitting down at the end of the 5th round, for instance, on this occasion, or looking gassed as she was sitting in between rounds and getting the advice. So she seemed fresher to the end, and I think in part because that was. I think it might have been, let's get the optics of the big win, and then let's just maintain that lead and be judicious. Maybe that was the game plan.
I think it almost lost to the fight. In my view, the second round I had against her in the 4th as well. So going into that 5th, because I'd given that first as a 10-9, not a 10-8. It all came down to that 5th round, and it was still in the 5th. No one sort of really went for it, as in no one went for a big flurry. It was very much just one strike, and it was just
one of the differences is she was able to hold her against the cage, and she wasn't being able to land the big strikes, but little knees, little shots here and there, being able to hold and dominate that, where the fight was taking place. Maybe her extra little bit of height and reach to be able to outbody her maybe made the difference there, but to hold and for a certain amount of time in that 5th round, that's why I thought it came.
Yeah, absolutely.
But either way, I think we're going to find those 2 young women back in the cage sometime in the not too distant future, against each other and fighting for another belt. There's no doubt in my mind. Very, very high caliber young female fighters there. Yeah. And at lightweight, flyweight, was it? Flyweight. There aren't too many others. Yeah. So we let's talk a little bit about the bad blood between Jake Hurl and Brad O'Walley. Coming in, it was the first time I've seen at the DFC weigh-ins, and you were MC for that one, and so you had a better view than most. The stare down got serious, and for the first time, I think Greg had to kind of get in between the fighters and break it up. So there was obviously there's a lot going on there, and you said on a few occasions in the commentary, this is really a fight 7 years in the making, and this is a fight that should have happened at DFC 18. DFC 17.
Oh, really?
17 or 16?
Isn't that what Rich said?
Yeah.
I heard him say it.
But I was drinking a few beers in commentary this time.
And then
I have them hidden under the cage, everybody.
So when you open it, went.
But Jake pulled out last minute, and
right.
So these 2 young men were to fight. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it might have been at 17 or 16. But sometime in the last couple of DFCs, these 2 young men were to face off and to put all of this bad blood behind them. You would hope. And there's and then Jake pulled out. Now, in Jake's victory speech, Jacob made mention that he'd come very close to just giving it all away.
Yeah.
But he found his passion again, and maybe
out of hatred.
Out of hatred for Brad.
Hatred brought me back.
Yeah, well, it seemed to be some unfinished business there, and
Definitely.
and it seemed like Jake might have been happy just to leave it all alone and to step away from the sport, but there was enough fire there to bring him back, and certainly that mission to see this dispute to the end was enough, and it made for a great fight.
It really did, and I'm a bit torn here. I don't want to maybe divulge too much information because I don't want MMA guys, especially under DFC, to come across as thugs or anything like that. But sometimes it
They're
brings out
thugs.
the best and the worst in people too.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're on a winning streak, how do I say this? How do I say this?
You feel very confident?
Yes, that's the words that I was going to say. Thank you, Hollywood. And you may say some things in that confidence, and somebody who's equally as good may have some things to say back. I'm trying to be politically correct. Brad Woolley and
What
Jake
exactly
Earl,
did they say?
Well,
So what's
wasn't
the genesis of this dispute?
well,
When you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, where did it all kick off, and why was that bad blood in the water?
Well, I'll tell you this. We, both Andrew Carpenter, my co-commentator, and myself, had been talking for weeks in advance about, where does this originate? And we didn't know. We just knew that there was blood in the water. We'd always seen on social media over the years, F you, no F you, I'm better. I think I'll have something to say about that. Teammates even getting involved and saying, this guy reckons he'd smash everybody. Jake Earl might have something to say about that. And then Jake getting on. But it's not even just been words, is what I'm going to say.
Ah, right. So
There's been actions.
Brick through windows and
Petrol bombs.
burning each other's businesses
rocking
down.
up at each other's gyms going, let's go, I'll take on the gym, old school Japanese style, But there has, I'll say this.
It spilled out in
if you like
outside of the gym environment. There might have been some heat in a room. That's not the DFC.
I'll say, look, this is the funny thing, right? We didn't know. So I went to the weigh-ins and I'm like, poor guys are dehydrated as hell. It's probably not a great time to start going deep into some hard questions. Yet I did anyway. Stupid me. I also did it in front of their coaches, which is probably even dumber because their coaches, sometimes may not be aware of some of the things, and maybe even if they are, they don't want them talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe they've disciplined their fighter over it. Maybe they've had words. Maybe they said, you shouldn't have done that or whatever. I don't know the full stories, but I do know the look on some of the coaches' faces. I'm not even going to mention names. When I brought up the subject, was like,
because both of these fighters are from Adelaide, aren't they? So,
yes.
I mean, there's every chance they could cross paths.
Oh,
just,
yeah.
socially.
They've been crossing paths, and they have crossed paths socially on the weekend at certain places out in town, for example. And you've had a bunch of guys from one gym and a bunch of guys from another gym. And things have had to actually get
Marv gets involved.
Well, Marv wasn't there on this occasion that I heard about, and I probably shouldn't say too much because I don't know a lot. It was funny.
Maybe
though.
you've said too much already.
yeah.
Let's say more.
This is the funniest thing to me was Jake was early at the weigh-ins, right? Brad was still cutting weight, and I'd gone up and spoken to Jake, and I said, mate, where did all this start? And look, I always say to all the fighters, you don't have to answer any questions. And even if you do answer the question, you can just tell me personally. And then you can say to me, I don't actually want that said on the broadcast, and we'll respect that. Absolutely. We'll say what they want us to say. So I've asked Jake, right? And I've got full 15 minutes off Jake where he's told me the whole story.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And if you're watching, Jake, thank you for giving me your time. And like human beings, we're all human, right? If you ask me, I'm going to be biased on, the way I see things, and I'm going to give it to you straight the way it is, if you ask my enemy over there, they're going to tell you Rich is a dickhead and he's a liar. And
I've heard that.
Bullshit.
We were saying
Right?
that before you came in.
Yeah.
Or you would be correct. So Jake gave me 15 minutes and he said, this happened, and then he did that, and then he said this, and then he said that.
So you could see the escalation going on.
And as far as I'm concerned, after Jake had told me his story, I'm like, wow, Ant-Man, Brad Wally, you're a bad, bad guy. You shouldn't have done any of these things, right? And then
you
half an hour later, Brad comes in and he's got his coach next to him, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, can't believe all that, because Brad, when he trained his first ever training session at Cardio Flex, it was with me in my class. So I'm like, I feel like I've known him since a teenager kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know? Well, he was 20, but he's 27 now, so a long time ago. And he's just been a lovely young guy, you know. I'm like, what? There's a different side to Brad that I never knew about. But, you know, things happen.
Yeah.
And so then I heard Brad's story. Well, actually, not from Brad. Pretty much, you know, Brad
from another source.
Yeah, yeah, that's all we'll say.
A source that's close to the situation, you may say.
Yeah, a source that's. Did I tell you who it was?
No.
But let's just say what you said was spot on. Very close to the situation. Very, very good friends of Brad. Right? You probably know who I'm talking about. If you don't know, you'll know. And
was it Jake?
You know, some commentators are real stirrers of pots, and you know, they provoke fights. I don't know if I'm that. I probably don't want to be that guy, but sometimes you got questions to ask, and it's interesting to know. And sometimes they can be the actual story of the fight that needs sometimes to be told. Maybe not all the details if certain things have gone on, but there is a story behind this fight, you know. And then I got, you know, the other source told me 20 minutes on the other side of the equation. I'm like, oh, what? He did what? Wow. He did that? And then what? Wow, you know. And so it was complete polar opposite worlds, and none of this was true, and none of that was true, and both were true at the same. And it was like, wow, you know.
But this is the stuff that great rivalries are made of, isn't it? You know, this is the type of thing that can. Well, I mean, in this case, it seems to have brought Jake back from the brink of leaving the sport.
Yeah, we're all Aussie males, and we're all proud. And if you're out there, let's say you're out in a place in the public with your girlfriend, right, and something's said to you, you're going to stand up, aren't you? And so those sort of situations happened. Yeah, so you know, there was a lot behind this fight.
Wow.
And I thought it was interesting, Jake's victory speech. Like the last victory speech of Tim Rogers, there was a few things that were interesting that were said, weren't there? When he pointed to his girlfriend and said some naughty things.
And what seemed what seemed interesting was like they had the fight and afterwards there was a respectful embrace
in the last round. There was a respectful embrace, and they didn't actually talk through the fight. And then they gave each other a bit of respect. But then it got to the victory speech, and I think the respect was gone.
It's gone. Yeah,
it's like I've been fighting
people like that,
people like that since high school.
Yeah.
And then Brad walked straight out of the cage.
Didn't hang around.
Did not hang around.
Yeah.
There wasn't much love in the end.
Do you think there'd be a rematch? Do you think there's a rematch in it?
No.
That's all done now.
Yeah.
The fight wasn't amazingly entertaining. Please do that thing. I didn't think it was.
What?
We were so the main event. I don't know.
It might have been a little bit anticlimactic after, because I mean, really, you had three main events, didn't you? There was a lot to look forward to, and there was a lot of personality around.
What are you talking about, Hollywood?
The one where he was trying to take him down for 3 rounds in a row, and he didn't get him down, and it was like him hugging him against the cage.
You had the best spot in the whole auditorium, in the whole Adelaide Oval, and you didn't see the action against the cage?
I saw that
the elbows to the temple?
There was some good shots. The guy who was defending the takedown did great in terms of his takedown defense.
What do you want him to do?
Well, no, that was
the fight was a takedown superstar versus a striker. What do you think's going to happen? You've got to nullify each other.
Would you see it again? the hesitation that doesn't support your excitement there. If you didn't know the story in the background of them, would you want to see that
I
fight
think
again?
if you're, and this is speaking to your uneducation of this sport, I think. For an educated, especially if you know the background styles of
If
each
you
other,
don't know the background styles, which 99% of the people in the audience would
then
not
I'm
have.
with you. If you're a casual and a thug like you are, Hollywood, you know.
It was
David Voller called me a casual once.
casual. It was very hard fought, and it was a very hard fought match. And I think what's really telling is that there was over.
Sort of.
There's over 1,000 people in the room, and nobody walked out. So, and what was interesting was we really ripped through the early half of the card, and then it really looked like it was going to be. But it was still there till 11:30.
How did that happen?
And it was just amazing.
It slowed down and got more technical as it went on, of course. But it really went fast early, didn't it?
Yeah, it was off to a cracking pace. So, so if we look up and down the card, Rich Warner, what was your fight of the night? Because we haven't handed out the checks yet, so maybe you can influence where the money goes here. So,
well, we've mentioned Brad and Jake. We've mentioned Vola and Joe. Mentioned Talia and Jasmine. Of course, the BJJ final went to the Tractor via Golden Point takedown at the end, which is good to see.
I think that needed to be explained to the audience as to what happened.
Oh my god!
we
thanks Hollywood. Thank you for saying that.
I think we discussed that a little bit off air, and the BJJ was kind of, I mean, it's essentially what we're seeing with DFC is the evolution of how combat sports are presented. And so we've seen K1 enter the cage just in the last 12 or so months. We've seen BJJ enter onto the card of some major events as well. And I think that, there's still some experimentation going on there to get that formula 100% right. And, I think in that case, not everybody was on the same page with how that was going to, if it was so even towards the end, how it would be decided. But in the end, it was by Golden Point, I think it was decided.
Yeah.
And
took from soccer.
A little bit confusing for the ring announcer as well, because I got up there to announce a winner and then got told, no, we're going to do a Golden Point. It's like, what does that mean? He went, I don't know.
The golden snitch.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll see what happens there. So we're seeing some of that. So I think most exciting knockout of the night has to go to Isaac Richards, who again, it seems every DFC steps out and knocks somebody out in a spectacular, spectacular fashion.
Was he the one that looked like he was asleep as he was being introduced? And when they brought him into the middle, even then he was standing there like, he
is a cool cat.
And then as soon as the fight started, he went out like a lion and tore. It was insane. I was like, this guy's not taking this seriously.
Wow.
And then he's just the complete opposite.
That definitely the KO of the night. And you know what? I think arguably, I don't know if it's just that I love Isaac so much, but I think that was the fight of the night as well. It was very quick and it was overdone over really quickly as well. But that guy is an excitement machine, and talking to
most electrifying athlete in local MMA.
Look, the guys from Kim Robinson and Kachina Fight Club, Sam Benetti.
How good does Sam Benetti look?
He's like 10 years older than me. And
this is insane, isn't it?
He is just amazing.
Yeah, I got a wink from him as I was in the cage. I looked around there. All I could see was like vascular arms, and I was like,
he's just the nicest.
You're allowed to look. It's okay.
Yeah.
He's like the most positive, encouraging guy ever. Sam Benetti. He's been around everybody who I know and love and respect knows and loves, respects Sam Benetti, and they've had many years of relationship with him. He's been the OG of the scene for many years before MMA ever existed, and he talked to me out in the back and talked about, one of the cliches, as they say, no stone has been left unturned. But he did say that, and he bloody meant it. He talked about, leaving nothing to chance. some of the pad work that I saw of, and always see of Sam Benetti with like, Manoli Camburis and so forth from Kachina and also from Isaac had been absolutely scary before this fight. And I absolutely believe them. No stone was left unturned, and there was no doubt about, I thought, who was going to win that. Respect to Andrew Gosling to come all the way from WA for that fight. He may be an absolutely a great fighter. We didn't get to see any of his skills because there was
no opportunity.
It was nothing in it at all. He just, I don't know. As you said, he looks maybe like he's sleepy, but he is not a sleepy young character. He is an absolute bull cat, and hence his name, Bullcat. And the way he finished that, the guy is like, he used to be the goalkeeper, and if you're a goalkeeper, you've got to have amazing reflexes. And
so his story is he was the goalkeeper for Adelaide United. Yeah. And turned his attention to MMA and kind of in the height of his career almost. He just gave that away and dedicated himself to the life of an amateur MMA fighter and is now, in my estimations, the most exciting man to watch inside a cage in 2023.
Absolutely, he is. And yeah, he's super exciting. His ability to generate power when you don't expect it. He didn't just hit with the beautiful left hand. He's left-handed, which the left hands come out of nowhere if you're not expecting. You don't have a lot of experience getting left-handers, which is the key. And then he threw
punch, and then it's
left head kick as well. Bang. Rocked him. He was rocked multiple times within 5-10 seconds, and he didn't even have a chance to hit the mat. The ref had to stop it because you could see he's still standing, but he ain't there.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
It was almost a replay of his performance at Apex, wasn't it? It just extraordinary talent there. Isaac has definitely got the momentum, and it'd be very interesting where he goes. Will he stay in amateur, or is he going to make that step up to professional? Does he take away a belt with him before he does that? I think all of these questions are still to be answered, but I'm excited to find out what the answers are. So spectacular card, great matchups. Congratulations to Ike and the team behind the scenes there.
Who was your fight of the night?
My fight of the night was
I've got another one too. Sorry.
So Joe and Damien was my fight of the night.
Yeah,
that was the one I had the most. That garnered my attention the whole night. The whole fight was something. There was in every round there was something to think either athlete could potentially walk away with it right up until maybe the last 90 seconds or so, and Damien started to pour it on, and you could see there was a gap that was starting to emerge there. But that for the personalities, enjoying both young men, enjoying their company, and having had the privilege of watching Cage Side, their performances over the last couple of years, it was a great moment. I didn't want to see either lose, but on the night, Damien proved why he is the triple champ at the moment. So that would have been my choice for fight of night. Knockout of the night was Isaac Richards. I mean, not just because of the fact that it was the best knockout of the night, but because it's a facsimile of his last two performances essentially as well.
What's a facsimile?
Exactly the same.
So for all the young people out there, hey, look, I had one other real quick one that I'm going to throw in there, and I don't know if it's just I'm a little bit biased, but Abdul Jalil Muhammad.
Yes. Exciting young man.
I'm probably a little bit biased because the entire time that he fought, he was talking to me outside of the cage.
Yeah, that was good fun.
I couldn't believe it. 10 seconds in, he's gone for the takedown and he's got his head against the cage and it's like that far away from me where I'm commentating, and he can definitely hear me. And we had a good chat before he fought, and I swear he's got his head against the cage trying to get the double leg, and he's looking at me and he went, he gave me a full wink. I'm like, did he just wink at me? I think that just happened. And then he started talking.
Yeah.
And he was acknowledging our commentary.
Yeah, he was participating in the commentary, I think, at that stage.
Certainly was. I'm like, mic him up. And all of before he got in that cage, he was warming up in the cage 2 hours or 3 hours before the event, as they sometimes do. He's going through with one of his teammates. Look, I'm going to do this. If he does that, I'm going to come here, circle to this side, all that sort of stuff, right? Which is cool because, I can watch that and go, okay,
See if you follow through.
Yeah. And he come up to me, he goes, because he lost his last fight.
Yeah.
And he, when we have fighters, we often get them to fill out a form, which, they can fill out some details about themselves and give us some information about things that they might like to share. Some shout outs to certain people who might be watching, whatever it might be. And one of the things is we asked them to write their fighting style.
Khabib.
And he said Khabib style.
Yeah.
And like, okay.
Share with you a moment,
right? And he did that in his first fight. And I think I may have asked him, are you going to do some Khabib chain wrestling, obviously? And he's like, yes. And he tried, and I think he fought Crane Burke from M16, who was again on this card. And congratulations, Crane. We haven't said anything about you yet, but you fought very well as well. But he promised me, he said, mate, I'm going to come out. He goes, you told me off in your commentary last time about I didn't do my Khabib style. He goes, I'm going to do Khabib style. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm so sorry to tell you off. I didn't mean it like that. And he's just like, yeah, don't you worry. He goes, that was like my first ever experience, maybe a little bit, I don't know, I said deer in the headlights, but maybe a little bit hesitant. There was a beautiful spinning kick that he went for, and he stopped himself just before the buzzer in his first round. And I'm like, why didn't you throw that spinning kick that you were looking for? I'm looking at you now. You're doing all these spinning moves in the cage. What happened there? Why didn't you throw that? And he said, I hesitated. I'm like, And he goes, yeah, that won't happen this time. I've had my hesitant fight. I've had my little experience this time. And I was in my head going, easier said than done. I hear a lot about fighters that are going to say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this, and then that, right? Yeah. And none of it is ever done, you know? So it's very, I'm a commentator and I talk all the time. It's easy to talk. It's easy to do my job, to do their job, and to do what they're dreaming of in their head at nighttime is very difficult. And I get that. And he said, I'm going to come out, and my first thing I'm going to throw is a Superman punch. I've heard that so many times. Yeah. And you know what he did?
Superman punch straight from the get-go.
Karate Kid kick.
Yeah.
So Abdul Jalil, not only are you a man of your word and a man of very strong character, mate, you are a highly skilled young man, a very exciting fighter to watch in the future. Yeah. Thank you so much for commentating with me whilst we fought and for giving me a little wink. I very much enjoyed his performance. Flawless performance.
Yeah. I think what the difference this time. How much did Abdul Jalil seem like a seasoned professional, like he'd done it like 20 times before? So his first fight was very hesitant, and you could kind of get the sense he didn't get it all off. Like it just didn't go his way. He didn't get into his groove and the like. And when I announced I think it might have been he fights in that suffocating Khabib style.
Yes.
And I stepped back, and I think Greg Clenyons leant over and he goes, I laugh when you said the Khabib style and 0-1, because like, I think Khabib's 33-0. so he said, we'll see how he goes this time. Yeah, and then he came out and he did fight in that style. Like there was no doubt. Like if you heard the Khabib style and you saw the Khabib style, and it all went his way this time. He got into his groove and he fought his natural style, and he kept it he kept it himself moving in the way that the way that he'd trained and had imagined in his mind he would on the night, and it all he just went into sync, and it came but it wasn't just the Khabib style in terms of the fight; it was the Khabib style in terms of the talking and the interaction with the commentators.
Isaac
and the
Richards said at the end of his fight something. It was a beautiful line that he said, something about dreams without proper activity.
No, that was Damien.
Sorry, Damien said, did he?
Yeah,
equals mental masturbation.
No, delusion or something.
Delusion.
Right?
So just basically, being able to dream is not enough.
Yeah, imagination without action is just illusion. I think that was maybe it. Yeah,
is that Mark Twain?
And that's what happened to Abdul Jalil. So
well, no, I think he mentioned who it was as well. But it was a
good line, wasn't it?
It was a great line, and I love the fact that these amateur athletes are thinking in this way. I love that Abdul Jalil had that confidence in his second fight on a big stage to really be himself and to fulfill it. And now he's walking away not wondering what if. He knows that when I turn up, I'm formidable, and I just got to be myself. And And you see that in Damien, you see that in Joe, you see that in these amateur fighters that are fighting with such maturity and technique and skill in the cage, but then outside the cage, handling themselves very, very professionally as well. They've got an idea as to how to brand themselves. We see it in the merchandise. You're donning some of it now. We also saw the Vanilla Gorilla merchandise out. We saw Talia the Great
I didn't get my T-shirt this time off the Gorilla. I'm going to have to hit him up, I reckon.
I think so. And you see it in Joe's personal brand. I think he had the pink nail polish on.
He did. Not sure about that.
Well, and so you're starting to see these young athletes really get their personality out there, understand that there's a bit of a marketing game outside of just the fighting, and start to emerge as real personalities in the sport, which is a beautiful thing to see.
Were you disappointed that Joe didn't walk out to Dire Straits?
He did, didn't he?
He didn't.
No, he did. He walked out.
Well, not the Money for Nothing.
It was
song.
a different song. It wasn't Money for Nothing. It was
Songs of Swing.
No, it wasn't that either.
No, it wasn't that.
No. It was.
That's their best song, though, isn't it?
It was that.
Oh, this gold is.
Yeah.
What I say. Songs of Swing.
That's not Songs of Swing. That's not.
Where the boys can play.
Yeah.
And dedication. Blah, 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 turning on the nighttime into the day. It's a shit song.
Walk of Life. Walk of Life.
Yes. So it's not Songs of Swing.
We finally got it.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. You just had to sing it through.
Yeah. But I was expecting the Money for Nothing.
You didn't get the
I didn't get it. And I was like,
Oh, so maybe a strategic misstep.
Can we?
I think that's why he lost the fight.
By the Vanilla Gorilla camp.
Can we start
I'll
a
learn those
petition
lessons.
and get signatures for Joe to change from Dire Straits to something else?
It really irks you, doesn't it?
Oh, I love everything about him except for the song.
You can put up with the nail polish, the Dire Straits.
Oh,
I wonder where the Dire Straits inspiration comes from. Actually, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There's a lot of exposure. I mean, even he's a young man. So you wouldn't imagine.
I think he said
even his mum and dad might not have been playing.
I think he said he was driving in his car. It was like a mixtape or something he just put on. He hadn't heard for years. He plays a little bit of guitar. And I think there's a connection there. He's like he played that before or whatever, and he just put it on. And he started getting into it, and he's like, "I'm going to make this my first." I'm like, "No, bad decision." So that's where it came from.
We had the Venga Boys a couple of times.
We had Venga Boys, I think twice in a row, wasn't it? 2 fights in a row.
Oh, speaking. Look, we've got to mention this young man.
Okay,
we haven't yet. The Hog, Jacob Desmond, because he came out of the Venga Boys.
Yes, he did.
And he was the first to wear the crazy glasses. What did it say on the glasses? Hog move. Hog moves or something like that.
I don't know. I
didn't see that.
This speaks of confidence, doesn't it? Like to go in there and have what do you call them? Items on the side.
Props.
Props.
Yeah.
He's gone in with props. These are my winning props over here. Have them ready, boys. And the boys were like, boom, glasses on. Boom. There was no doubt in his mind that he was going to win that fight. And
was he from Igor as well?
No, he's from Element.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So sorry, he's the swimmer. We did talk a little bit about him.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? We're seeing these young athletes. They've got their own style. They understand the importance of marketing and brand. And,
well played, Hog.
You know, I think we're going to see some Piglet or some Hog shirts coming out.
Where's the Hog shirts, Jake?
Maybe he's got his own line of sunglasses coming to a
Oh,
store near you.
wouldn't that be good if we can all get the glasses?
Wouldn't it be great if you could just get them on the runs?
Yeah.
You know,
Hog move.
Hog branded sunglasses on the runs. $29.99.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and so it's wonderful to see the athletes thinking not just about what they're going to do inside the cage, but all of the things that go on outside the cage, which we've spoken about on many occasions. It's really the difference between a good athlete and a great athlete, and maybe opening the doors on opportunities. If you've got two athletes and they're pretty even in most respects, but one's got a bit of personality and
the other one's boring,
and a bit of a social media following and a couple of sponsors behind them. Well, there's every chance that athlete's going to get better matchups, or doors might open more
with the ladies
for them as well.
Yeah,
as well. Let's not underestimate that. So great night. DFC 18 will go down in the annals of local MMA as one of the great ones, and we absolutely cannot wait until the 3rd of March, which will be DFC 19, and I believe June next year will be XX. It'll be DFC 20. So absolutely amazing, and of course. next October on the 14th will be DFC 21. So the calendar is set. And if you're a trainer and a coach and you've got a fighter that you've been preparing or that you just want to kind of get in the cage on the biggest stage that there is available in Australian MMA.
Dave will fight you.
Dave's wanting a bear at the next one, I heard.
Yeah. Bear hands.
Yeah.
So
amazing job. I just want to mention this. Dave Stockbridge, ladies and gentlemen, what a job on the MC mic. Always, but I just thought, mate, I get goosebumps all the time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. I really do.
Did you get goosebumps?
I didn't, but I thought you did a fantastic job.
You can't manufacture what some people with their own self, their own personality, their own soul produce is unbelievable. And you are absolutely special, my friend. We are absolutely privileged to have you at DFC.
Oh, thank you.
Not that you're not part of DFC, you certainly are part of the furniture and part of the soul of DFC.
Maybe a cushion in the corner. Maybe not the couch,
but yeah, look, you probably don't get thanked.
Maybe a throw rug.
One of those cushions that you flip over when your friends are coming over
and they get dirty.
Everybody give a shout out to Dave Stockbridge. Everybody give him some love. Tell him what a great job he did and how he made you feel. And if you're selling or buying a house, go to Real Estate.
I can make you feel like that all the time. Well, I think that brings us very neatly to the conclusion of this podcast. So I want to thank our guest, Rich the Banger Warner. It wasn't a banger.
Was jazz hands waved then? It was, what was this?
Yeah, look, we had lots of bangers. We had lots of bangers throughout the night. Everyone was a banger. There was no disappointing fights, no disappointing fighters. Everybody was a winner. Win, lose, draw. Absolute winners, everybody. Well done. If we didn't mention your name, it's not that we don't love you. You are very special to us, and we love all the fighters, and you guys are all of our heroes. So well done to every single athlete that attended on the night and all the teams and coaches as well.
All the teams and coaches, M16, Element, Igor MMA over again, dominating from New South Wales.
Yeah, let's not have them back again. Josh Coolabout, please.
Stay away. Stay away.
Goodbye.
Go get border patrol. Those guys that were doing stuff during COVID, they should just set up Josh as soon as they see him coming. Hey, mate, no idea. Sorry, mate. Head off to Queensland. So Trinity MMA, Laristra over as well, which was fantastic. So many good coaches.
Control.
SACA, Complete Control.
Yep.
All the guys. Thank you very much for making your way. ISO Health, of course. All of the guys, thank you very much for making DFC 18 very, very special. To the friends and family that attended. It was a wonderful night. I'm sure none of you will forget, and certainly one that will linger with us for many, many years to come. And of course, we'll look forward to bringing you more of the Daily Combat podcast very, very soon. Final thoughts, Hollywood McConnelly.
Fantastic card. So many first round finishes. You can still see it. If you go to diamondbackfc.com, you can still purchase the pay-per-view there and view that. It is definitely worth the money for sure.
Absolutely. Or jump on a Fight TV and spend your $50 and you can watch it over and over.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you